Do unto others always as you would have them do unto you. Let this be your guiding principle, and my love will always shine through. So, for all of those who don't know, let me make it a little clearer. God is still working. Check the miracle in your mirror.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 26 of The Study. I'm your host, Evadense. Today, I have a very special guest, Mr. Tobal DaGriot. Thank you for agreeing to do this with me, sir.
Like I say, I'm honored to be here, sir,
Thank-
and it's my pleasure.
Now, your Facebook bio says CEO of and founder of Raisin da Bottom Productions, that you are an author, storyteller, music minister, and poet.
Mhm.
Why don't you share with our audience how you would like how you introduce yourself, or what if that's left anything out? Tell the people who you are.
Well, like you just said, I am Tobal DaGriot. I've been writing for about 30 years, but I found that it was like a natural gift because even as a kid, I had a creative side that was people actually said I was pretty good when I was a kid. So it wasn't something that I valued because I was a kid. I was just doing what kids do. But yeah, so music minister. I call myself that mainly because both of my grandfathers were Baptist preachers. So there are certain things about me that I can't get away from.
Sure.
I have this relationship with God, and I share my relationship with God with other people, is what I do. And I do that in the form of music or poetry or storytelling. Uh, I even have some hip hop,
Yes,
and
sir.
and
That's
it's
right.
all about sharing my experiences and strength and hope with other people.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I've always found ever since, and just so the audience knows, I met you August 2013 at the very first time I attended the variety show. I had just like, and I had been bouncing around performing in all type of places, like back when this is like back when Capital City Records in DC was a thing. And through these places, you meet people, you hear about, hey, I'm having an event here. And I don't remember where or how I heard about the variety show, but when I heard about it, I was like, all right, that sounds great. I checked it out, and you and brother Tim, the GGT, you guys, aside from setting up an amazing production, like the stage, the setup, the background, the banner, everything, like you guys are just some of the most welcoming and kind people that I've ever met, honestly. And that's unfortunately, it's not commonplace, because in music and poetry, and maybe you've come across this, there's a little bit of competitive ego that I'm not a fan of. But you guys are like the complete opposite of that. So ever since 2013, I've been bouncing around here and there, making cameos at the variety show, and it's been great. So that's wonderful. You mentioned your both of your parents are, you said, Baptist ministers.
Mhm.
I was my wife and I, we were both raised Catholic, and over the years we kind of like stepped away from the church a little bit. But I would say maybe a few years, maybe less than 10 years ago, I did some more studying and kind of went back and tried to find the value in those stories. And I've really found a deep appreciation for the religious stories, for the Bible stories. I read them to my kids. What was that like for you growing up with two Baptist ministers?
Well, that is a long story
All right.
because growing up with my grandfather was tough. As a little kid, I was born in a bad situation. My mother was just a young girl, 15 years old. And she was the second daughter of a Baptist minister who did not appreciate her having children unwed. So I caught a bunch of stuff that I shouldn't have caught as a kid. My father, I never met. And so I did not know that he was a minister until maybe I was 58 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, and my wife, she did the ancestry.com thing, and she found my father for me. And in doing that, I found a whole nother side to my family I found out that my grandfather on my father's side actually was not only a minister, but he was an excellent businessman who had accumulated 300 acres of land in North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
I went down there to visit, and I discovered I was an heir to the property.
Oh,
Yeah, so unfortunately, my father had passed away like 8 years earlier, but that was the first time I actually got to see his face. So I didn't get to know my grandfather on my father's side, only what I learned about him and my father through my newly found sisters and brother.
mm,
I discovered I had four sisters and two brothers on my
wow.
father's side. Yeah, I was, and this is a great time because I've lost my mother and my sisters on my mother's side. So I'm basically alone, except for my cousins and my newfound sister, brother, and stepmother, as a matter of fact,
Mm,
because I found that my father had been married and she accepted me almost like a long lost son. And so now we have this wonderful relationship. So I'm really really happy about
that's
that.
beautiful. Wow.
Yeah,
You
and my
oh, go
first
ahead.
my first grandfather actually had selected me out of all his grandchildren to do poetry at his church.
Oh,
At the time, I was like 12 years old, and I didn't want to do it. I thought poetry was for girls, and I was very, very rebellious. But uh, it turned out to be one of the worst experiences of my life that I would never forget because I did not practice the poem and I didn't want to say it, so it was a fiasco for me. My cousins laughed at me for years
mm,
because we were all there in church. But my grandfather saw something in me that I didn't recognize myself. And so what ended up happening, as a matter of fact, by the time you showed up, I had been through some of those things at other poetry venues, which uh, made me start to want my own spot because I had gone to a few places and I put my name on the list and I found they were practicing favoritism and they were mean and I wasn't the only one. There was a few people that would always end up on the outside looking in. So that's one of the reasons why I started up the variety show because I wanted to be more have it more inclusive for people. If you get there on time and you put your name on that list, you will get an opportunity. I stand on that. I make sure that it's not a competition because some people just are not that well versed in doing things. I was pretty new at it myself. So um, I wanted to make it a more welcoming place for people where you can come in, you could do your thing, we could videotape you, and then you can see yourself and critique yourself and get better. Me personally, that's exactly what I've been doing. I've been trying some new things and practicing and just trying to get better.
that's beautiful. That's really important because for a lot of people, and there's nothing more tragic and common than a talented person that never really achieves the success they maybe deserve. And I think providing a platform for people who don't have resources is a beautiful thing because, like, let's say somebody can write or play an instrument or perform poetry or song, and that's about it. They don't know how to set up a YouTube channel or they don't know how to do marketing and promotion, and they hear about a place like the variety show. They just bring themselves and their gift to the stage, and you guys take care of the stage, the sound, the video recording. You share the links on your YouTube, on the Facebook, and just like that, this person who didn't otherwise have a window to the world to share their gift through you guys gets to share their gift, and I think that's a really beautiful thing. You mentioned loss. You've experienced loss in your life, like not having a relationship with your father and losing people along the way. I got to tell you, like, the reason why I do these storyteller series, these interviews with people on the study, is because I lost my best friend at 25. Like, we were the same age. Not, funny enough, I didn't know that I was older until after he passed because I always saw him as my big brother. And actually, his birthday was yesterday. We're taping this on June 6th. Yesterday, he would have turned 44 years old. And this man died at 25, leaving behind three kids and a wife, which is way too soon. He got a tumor in his brain he was not able to recover from. And long story short, that made me feel that it reminded me like harder than anything has ever like put in my head that time is short. Get to it. Time is short. Like there may not be a tomorrow. You got to get to it now. And one of the biggest regrets I had with him is while he was in the hospital, I told myself, I'm going to bring the studio equipment in and we're going to have a recorded conversation while he's here in case the worst should happen. But I didn't do it because I didn't want to put that in his head that he may not make it home. I just wanted to kind of like be there for him. So I didn't do it. And I regret it still to this day, not having that last conversation because who knows what kind of stories he would have told me that I wouldn't have known about. So that's part of the reason why I do these storyteller series in the same way that you provide the platform at the variety show to provide people who I've come across, who I'm grateful for meeting, an opportunity to tell their story, because we don't know how much time we have on this earth to share what it is we have to share with people while we're here.
Yes, absolutely. And not just that, but I've been doing it long enough to the point where, another value came to light because several people that I had on my stage passed away. And the families reached out to me and asked if I had pictures and things of that nature. And I was able to give them videos of
Wow.
people's performances. And I don't know if you remember One Wise African. Well, he was there. He's one, and there have been a couple more. But man, we preserving people's memories
Yes.
live and previous. We make them immortal because you can always go back and see One Wise African on my site,
Yes.
right? And a few more. And so it's just been a wonderful journey. And not just that, but I've actually seen somebody grow up, come to my show, trying new stuff, and then move on to greater things. And that's a beautiful thing too.
Yes.
I've seen it happen, and so I just enjoy what I do.
That that's probably one of the greatest things you can do for somebody is be there for them when they're very young and encourage them to grow not just as a person but with their art. I teach martial arts and I coach and mentor, and over the years I've seen kids turn from 3 to like they're applying for college and they come back to me, they're like, hey, I still remember our classes together, and it's such a beautiful thing. Like when they come back to you and they remember what you did for them and what your presence and what you provided for them meant to them and how it helped them along the way. You're absolutely right. Like immortalizing yourself through art is a big thing. Like I was a big fan of Tupac's when I was young, and I still admire his work and his work ethic. I mean, he was a little bit reckless, and I don't and all the people I admire and I respect. I don't agree with every choice they make or everything they say. I don't even agree with everything that I do and I say. I make mistakes. I have to find myself apologizing to my wife, to my kids. So I don't even agree with everything I do and say. But when he passed at 25 also, I was a teenager and that was kind of like, wow, like, the big dogs, like my heroes, like the people I look up to, like they're not promised tomorrow too. So that was another loss. But the fact that his work lived on and more albums came out after he passed than came out when he was alive, like it's like, wow, you can really do some work that will outlast you on this earth and it'll be here forever, so that when people want to look back, they're like, I can still hear their voice, I can still get their gift through what they left behind. And that's what you guys do at the variety show, and that's beautiful. I can't even imagine how many people you've come across and met over the years who wouldn't have otherwise had an opportunity to share their gift. That's while we're on that, why don't you tell me, because I talked with Tim with the GGT last time, and he shared a little bit about how the variety show got started. But I want to hear from you. How did this whole variety show start? I came to know it as the H Street Variety Show. How did the tell the people how the variety show came about?
Well, like I said, I used to go around through the poetry venues, and I had a few bad experiences, and I was just thinking maybe if I should start at my own spot, but I didn't know where I was going to go. But my man Nate Mines over on 8th Street. I was in his shop because he had a whole lot of great stuff, incense and vitamins and all those natural foods and everything that was going on in there. And that was like a really nice spot. But he also had a social room. And I was talking with one of the cashiers named Yvette in his shop. And I said, wow, Yvette, this would probably be nice to have a show in. And she said, well, why don't you ask Nate? I said, well, okay, I'll ask Nate. So I went and asked Nate if I could do a variety show or open mic. And he said, I love live entertainment. Sure, you can do it. And I'm like, okay. So I called up my partner, the GGT. I said, hey, man, you want to help me do this? You know, we can start up our own. And you know what? He said, yeah, man, let's do it. So we didn't have much. We actually started off our little DJing and whatnot with parts of a component set for speakers, and he had a microphone or two, and we got flyers made, and we started walking the block, passing out flyers up and down. We got ran off of some places because we were we were at a Heckinger Mall trying to, you know, pass out flyers, and they telling us it's private property, and we're like, man, we just passing out flyers, you know. And but we went out there and we did our thing, and then people started to come. We put the word out, and I like to say it was a whole lot like it's this movie that I love called Underworld: Rise of the Lycans.
Yes.
Love that movie. And my part that I reference is the part where Lucian was trying to get out of the castle. They shot him up with arrows, and with his like, just with his a few breaths left, he screamed for help. And when he screamed for help, trees started shaking, the ground started rumbling, and then out of the woodwork came hundreds of werewolves. And that's the way it was for my variety show. People started to come, and it was great. And believe me, man, I've grown because I didn't expect that. But I was the front man, and GGT was the music. So
Yeah.
we just made it work as best we can. And I later on, I got some lights, and I had a stage built so it could elevate people, so people could be elevated just a little bit. I felt like you feel like a star when you step up on stage.
Yes.
Right? I'm saying bring your A game because here you go. And we bought cameras, and hey man, we've been having a ball ever since.
That's beautiful. Yeah, it really, those little details make a difference because I performed everywhere from out in public. Like I remember being at the first Women's March back in 2017, and it must have been like 1,000 people within my sight, and I'm just there with a microphone and a PA system, all the way to like, you know, your stage or like Bus Boys and Poets or Capital City Records or wherever, and those little details really make people feel like you said, like a star. You know, you never know how you're gonna feel when you perform, but like when you're provided the lights, the sound system, the banner, like it really makes you feel like somebody's rolled out the red carpet for you, and it helps you bring your best out because when you feel good, you do well. I really believe that when you're in a good vibe in a good situation and the mood is right,
Uh-huh.
something really special comes out, and you guys help bring that out. That's beautiful. Yeah, I remember like before, way before we could do like Facebook events and like internet posts, like you had to walk the block, you had to pass out flyers to people, and you had to get the word out like face to face with people. That's the hustle, that's the grind, and you
Yeah.
guys have come a long way. Did it start on H Street at that first spot?
Yes, it did. That
Okay.
was our first spot, and we stayed in that spot for like 8 years.
Hmm.
Right?
I remember when you'd step on stage, you had to give love to brother Nate.
Yes.
And you had told the story about Nate, about the owner before. I remember you telling the story before, and that's what that's symbolized, like, right, paying homage to the man who made this possible for you guys.
That, but for all the poets that come before,
Yeah.
right? And your ancestors. right? In
Okay.
the spirit of Showtime at the Apollo. You step
Nice.
up on here, you rub Uncle Nate on the head, and then you give it your best.
Yeah, I
That's
remember
what
that.
you do. So
That's beautiful. Yeah. We really don't think often about the people who came before us because like and I know people say this a lot about Gen Z, but I think every generation is a little bit guilty, not genuinely appreciating all the time as much as maybe we should the people who came before us because I forgot where I heard somebody saying that we live in the time where we got things like hot water, cold water, heat, central heating and air conditioning, things like that. And maybe just one or two generations ago, they didn't have that. That's not that long ago.
no, it's not.
You know what I mean? And this all because this is what we've grown up in, this is what we've lived in. We think of these comforts as normal, but actually what's normal is the cold, the starvation, the hunger, the like what nature goes through, what animals in nature go through, the scavenging, the survival. That's the normal. We're
Yeah.
sitting on top of privilege and comfort, and we see this as normal. We forget to acknowledge like our ancestors and everything they had to bring to the table so that we could be here sometimes. And that's beautiful that you guys did that. That's something else.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
you're welcome. I wanted to ask you. You mentioned the movie, the Underworld. I remember that. That's the vampires versus the werewolves, right?
Yes.
What other movies do you like really resonated with you? Because I'm not into politics really. I know sometimes I speak on political things because I think politics and culture overlap sometimes. I'm into culture. I'm fascinated by human culture and human behavior and why we do what we do and how it is that we came to be doing to be this way. And I think we're heavily influenced by our artists and our poets and the art that comes forth, including movies, music, and books and things like that. What are some other movies that really have resonated with you over the years?
Oh man. Oh man. Now you talking about now I'm 67 years old.
Okay.
I've been watching movies a long time,
Uh,
but it's some movies I can watch over and over.
oh, of course.
So there's Pulp Fiction. I love
Ah,
Pulp Fiction. Samuel L. Jackson
yep.
and Vinny, what's his name?
John
Uh,
Travolta.
Travolta,
Yeah.
John Travolta. Oh my God, I love that movie.
Yeah.
I love Wolfman, right? I just like to see stuff. Sometimes you just don't see it on the street.
Yeah.
I like a monster movie.
Oh,
I love
nice.
right now. One of my favorite movies is Godzilla, King of the Monsters. I just
Okay.
I just like watching. But you give me a good kung fu movie like Enter the Dragon, I can watch that over and over and over. I love westerns. I like what is the name of that? Tombstone.
Tombstone. Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer just passed this year.
Man, Dances with Wolves.
Haven't seen that one yet. Not
That's
yet.
a wonderful movie.
I'm gonna check it out.
Man, I mean, I could go on and on, but
Of course.
those are the ones that will come to mind first.
You know, you talked a little bit about your background as growing up around the Baptist culture, and like I said, my wife and I were brought up Catholic. And one of the things that I've learned to appreciate about the faith, about the good book and these old stories, is the value systems that come behind it. Whether or not a person believes that it's fact or that this happened or didn't happen, that an ark was built or an ark wasn't built, that someone rose from the dead or didn't rise from the dead, regardless of how we feel about that, the stories and the morals stand firm till this day. And I've even like our son is 15, our daughter's 12, and I've told them all the time for people who are lost and have no direction in life, the Bible is a great place to start because like if you have no direction, you need some type of compass to move forward in life. Otherwise, you're not standing still, you're moving backwards. And the stories and the morals that come from those ancient texts still stand strong to this day. And I feel like movies and music do that as well. And then people might find that a little bit silly, but I think a good movie, a good story, in the same way that the Bible can like present a protagonist, a hero, a struggle, an overcoming. I think good movies can do that. What do you think?
I'm absolutely certain of it. You can grow, and there's wisdom that you can glean from movies.
Yes.
Just say, for instance, like when I was growing up, there was a movie called The Ten Commandments. Even to this day, I'm still loving what was taught in that movie. Believe it or not, there's a movie called Conan the Barbarian.
Mm.
Um, there's wisdom in that movie because there's a certain point where they actually steal somebody's ruby and all this money and all that kind of stuff. But the wise man in there says that uh, how did he say that? It was uh, success will test a man's mettle as surely as failure, which means basically that you have to watch what you're doing even when you're successful. You can mess up,
Yes.
right? And I love gleaning, you know, good information because even in the Bible, my favorite book is Proverbs,
Mm.
right? So I really love reading the wisdom, right? I want to learn to be a better person and be good in my judgment. So I have to learn. I've expanded my own horizons just by going and listening to different preachers, different ministers, and I've learned a whole lot of different things to help me grow.
Mm.
And so that's how I can manage to be like, you know, more open to people, and that's I think is good for everyone.
That's excellent. You know, one of the things that I was concerned with the first time I stepped on the variety show, I was like, what if I'm kicking these raps and like it's too explicit and like I don't want to offend anybody because y'all seem so polite and you're always very well dressed and you're always presenting yourself like a true gentleman. And I'm just like, I don't want to say something that's like offensive to these people. But I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna bring it the way that I wrote it and just be my natural self. And you guys made me feel very, very accepted. And I was like, you know what? Like this is exactly what we need more of, like people doing what they do. And maybe like, like it's not about agreeing with perspectives or like, having the same frame of mind, but like, hey, that person is being genuine. And whether no matter how I feel about it, I can appreciate a person who's being honest because really like what bothers me is the phoniness and the ego and people doing things for the praise, for the likes, for the admiration, and they neglect to be themselves in the process. They're being a character for the sake of getting approval, and you guys are the exact opposite of that. You guys are just like, come as you are, be who you be, and showcase it to the world. And that's one of my favorite things about you. As far as like musical, because we talked about movies a little bit, and really I could go on about movies for a long time. Like you, uh, that's a whole another podcast by itself. What about musical inspirations? Like whether it be like soul singers or rappers or instrumentalists, like what are some of your musical inspirations?
Oh man, James Brown,
Mm.
Earth, Wind. I came up listening to the 70s music, man. I was a teenager in the 70s. So Gap bands were the thing
Yeah.
back in those days. They used to come out to the parks. So, um, man, I grew up, my mother and her sisters sang in the choir. But when they were doing parties, they turned into Aretha Franklin, uh, what was her name? Dionne Warwick,
Mm.
Diana Ross, and Gladys Knight. So I love those lady singers. Al Green,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
uh, Marvin Gaye.
Yes.
Nowadays it's Chuck, but then there was some dudes back in the day, man. There's something called soft rock. And I used to like guys like Hall and Oates.
Ah.
I liked Christopher Cross. Now, when you think of Laura, you laugh, don't cry. I know she, man. I used to listen to, man, I'd be back in there. I'd have a great time listening to those guys singing Barry Manilow.
Mm.
You know,
All right.
it's a whole bunch of people, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. My parents were the 97.1 soft rock type. So that was like every evening, every car ride, you hear a little bit of, either that, my father was into the classic rock station, so I grew up on that. And then, through my friends, I learned about, the other artists, the Naughty by Natures, the Tupacs, the all the newer generation artists. But I think now at this age, I'm kind of, I feel like the same way you do. Like, there's just so many artists to draw inspiration from, and music really does get people through the hard times. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with this group, this rap group called QN5. They've
No.
got an artist named Tone Deaf, one of their rappers named Tone Deaf. He did a song called Optimist. And like I said, I could go on a lot about it, a lot of different songs, but that one song, Optimist, is probably one of my favorite pieces of music and lyric I've ever heard. It got me through some pretty hard times, and it really warms up my heart that my son now, it's one of his favorite pieces. And all I do is just expose my kids to the music that I've come across and let them pick and choose what it is they like. And like, music really gets people through the day, at like, whether it has a message or it just feels good, So like, musical inspiration is, I love to know what makes people really, really vibe, like what types of music. And it's rare that you find people these days that are just into one genre. So yeah, yeah, that's cool.
I get into the hip hop thing too, especially back when I first started writing. I was listening to Ice T
Hmm.
and yeah, NWA. Then I found a guy named Snoop,
Yeah.
and back in the day when I first started listening, there was a show that used to come on called The Box, and on
Yeah.
the box you could actually select the song that you want to hear.
Yeah.
And I used to put "What's My Name" on there,
Yeah, I remember that one.
or "Compton City G's" by Easy E,
Yeah.
and then DMX. Woo!
Yeah.
I wish I could have talked to that kid. Golly.
Yeah. I didn't appreciate DMX until after he was gone. I always thought he was a cool cat. He was very original. I think he did his own thing. He didn't try to be like other people. And then I heard not that long ago, actually, like, there was a piece he did. It looked like the stage set up from Def Poetry Jam. I don't remember if that's exactly what it was, but that man dropped an a cappella verse that was legendary. I'm gonna share the link in the video description. But yeah, DMX definitely. What was it? You mentioned something that made me think. Oh, you mentioned Eazy-E. Eazy-E was quoted as saying a long time ago that rappers are akin to street reporters. And one of the very first songs that I wrote back in the karaoke machine days, when we would record our music on tape using a karaoke machine and whatever instrumental we can find, I wrote a song called Street Reporter. And I had these three verses where I told three stories: one about a single father raising a daughter, one about a guy, trying to get off the streets, and I forgot what the other one was. But I really, that resonated with me. Like, Eazy-E isn't even really one of my favorite artists. I mean, although he did give the world Bone Thugs and Harmony, and that they changed the game. But I think he was dead on with that street reporter thing, because, like, yeah, like, a person could be cynical and be like, rap music isn't really music. It's just this, it's just that. But I'm more to the leaning of, like, they're street reporters. Rappers and MCs and poets, they're giving you stories from places you don't come from, that you may never visit, that's like movies and books. They're bringing these stories to life for you to learn from these experiences from. Now, obviously, rappers aren't role models, but learning from a person's experience, I think, is so valuable. And that's for me what rappers and poets have done, is like, wow, like, that's what it's like in the hood. That's what it's like in the South. That's what it's like on the West Coast. That's what it's like to be broke and homeless. Like, I get to hear their stories, and I'm just like, it just makes me so grateful for everything that I have, you know?
Yes,
You know.
I am too. And I really, really like the idea of having a way to express myself
Mm,
and using different methods to tell stories, whether it be poetry, hip hop, singing a song, and all those different things. And um, I find it liberating to be able to do that. And
yeah.
so, as a creative, but one of the reasons that I call myself the griot is the storyteller, and a griot actually is a reporter uh, in African culture. They
Wow.
tell the stories of the day. They are the news reporters. They carry on the culture. They tell the traditions. They talk about. They tell the jokes. They sing the songs.
Mm.
They're an important part of the cultures of Africa. And so that's when I claimed the name, because I couldn't be just a storyteller. I have a song. I have a poem. And so, the different ways that I tell these different stories makes me a griot.
I
It's like,
didn't know that. I
it's
didn't know that. I thought that was your last name.
no, no, my real name is Roger Wright,
All right.
right? My uncle named me Tobal, which is actually short for Cristobal, which in
Oh,
Spanish culture means Christ bearer.
wow.
Yeah, I just found that part out last year.
Oh man.
But I know for a fact that my uncle comes from the South, in a very tiny little town where hardly nobody knows where it's at. So it's kind of secluded, but they're old world religious. And I used to wonder why they give me a name like Tobal. Do you know how many problems I had? Because it took me a while to accept that,
Yeah.
but nowadays it makes me proud.
That's beautiful. I want to turn the conversation to something a little bit serious. One of the things I mentioned that I'm a martial arts instructor for work, and when the way that started for me was I didn't actually start training like formally until I was 21. Basketball was my sport as a child. Basketball kept me off the streets, kept me out of a lot of trouble. I loved the players from the 80s and 90s. I grew up with the Jordans, the Barkleys, Larry Bird was my favorite player, the Magic Johnsons, Worthies. Like I grew up with the dynasties, the Detroit Pistons, and basketball was my game. But when I turned 21, as you know, when you turn 21, you're welcome into the different scenes, into the bar scenes, into the nightclubs. I had watched a lot of my friends and my peers really destroy themselves through things like drugs and alcohol and cigarettes. And when I turned 21, I was like, that whole lifestyle, that party and get drunk and forget about the consequences lifestyle was not appealing to me. So I was like, what other options can I do? I'd been doing a little bit of self-taught boxing. I did a little bit of Pilates. I was trying to get myself healthy, but I was like, I needed an instructor. I need some formal training. So I was working at a bank and we were handling the accounts for a martial arts school. And through meeting the managers, they invited me. I checked it out. I was like, all right, this is what I want to do. Nobody's making me go. I'm 21 years old. I'm a grown adult. I'm going to pay for my classes. And I started taking that training as a means to have something constructive to do as an alternative to the party lifestyle. Um, I wanted to ask you about Count Crackula.
Mhm.
Why don't you share with the people who is Count Crackula?
Count Crackula is my anti-hero. He's a bad guy, but he's got something good to tell you. Count Crackula is addiction personified.
Mm.
Count Crackula came about as a result of my crack addiction. But when I first had the idea, I was walking down the street with a couple of my buddies, and a guy jumped out from behind a tree, and he had a very Eastern accent. And he said, "Do you have crack? I want crack." And me and my buddies were like, nah, man, we don't mess around with that, because he was really messed up. And we walked away like, wow, that dude acts like a Crackula or something. But when I went to treatment, one of the things they had us do was to look back in our lives. And when I was looking back in my life, I realized that I was a Crackula too. So I wanted to carry the message that there's a way out of that hellhole of addiction. So I used Count Crackula to draw attention to myself so I can tell people that there's a way out, there's a solution to this problem, right? So Count Crackula was born 1995, 1996. And the first time I performed was at a Narcotics Anonymous convention.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it was a talent show at the Lincoln Theater, as a matter of fact.
Man.
And so there was nothing in there but people from NA. Well, needless to say, Count Crackula was a heck of a hit.
Yeah.
I've almost lost my cookies watching people jumping up and down out there in the audience, right? And I felt so great doing it. I went back and told some people about it, and a lady overheard me talking about it, and she had written a play called The Process. Basically, The Process is about people who try drugs recreationally, but then get hooked, but then they find their way to treatment and they make it back to their normal self. So Count Crackula is right in the middle. When I come in, it's because people have the drug dealers showed up at the party. I'm a butler, but somebody gives me a drug and it changes me. And then Count Crackula is just out there, right? So we did that and we traveled around to different states and conventions and whatnot. Count Crackula was known and he was a hit everywhere. So lately I've been creating videos with Count Crackula as a educational tool to let people know. And so that's my guy,
Yeah.
Count Crackula.
I watched the full video. I think the full video was like something like 16 minutes long. And I remember
Yeah,
for the first thing that it says is for educational purposes.
sure.
Um, and I really appreciate like that's it's fascinating, and it's great that you would share with the whole world that story about your struggle and what you went through and how you overcame it, and with this artistic and theatrical flair to it, because the video is very artistic and very theatrical, and it sends a really serious message that I think is really important. And I'm gonna put a link in the video description to the Count Crackula video. But like, you got your costume going, you got your performance, you really personified this character and brought him to life, and through him told an amazing story, because it's like one of the things, like we were talking about, how like rappers aren't role models and people have made mistakes. Like, a person's mistakes shouldn't define them. They should serve as a warning to everyone else that, look, I survived this. I might not have survived this. You don't have to go through what I went through, and I think one of the most disgusting things we do in our culture these days is when a person comes up to something, we dig into their past and find, aha, hey, back in this year you did this bad thing, so we can just discount you and invalidate you. It's like, well, no matter who you are, I think, like, what if we could all see into everybody's past? Like, we all have things that we're ashamed of. We all have things that we wish we didn't do, we wish we didn't say. And I think no matter who you are, you've got a past that you've overcome. And I don't like that we do that these days in our culture. Like, hey, I found some dirt on you. It's like, yeah, yeah. um I think it's an amazing thing that a person can go through something and then become a better version of themselves. Like, Martin Luther King has been to jail, Tupac's been to jail. Like, a lot of my family came to this country illegally, and they did nothing but work hard. Like, so everybody's, broken some laws, broken some rules, everybody's hurt people, broken some hearts. I think what's more important is the recovery, the overcoming, and not just that, but like the Count Crackula story, like sharing the story of what we went through, and as a warning lesson for educational purposes, like, hey, this is my story. Take it how you will. Do better than I did. And I watched that video. I'm like, this is a serious message here, I'm grateful for you, brother, that you shared that about your life. That's an amazing thing, and it's also entertaining. Like, you also made it an entertaining thing to watch, like with the costume and the makeup and everything. It was quite the artistic representation of serious thing that so many people have gone through. I had never even heard of Flocka or Monkey Dust. And obviously now fentanyl has come into light with this new day and age, but I didn't know about those things. And like watching in the video what that does to people, man, like it really makes me grateful for the things that I decided to avoid because like I think maybe under other circumstances, and I don't see myself as better than other people because I would be those people had I been in their situation, growing up where they grew up and had the influences that I had, that they had, I would have turned out like that. Um, and it's just it's something awful that people go through. But I really appreciate you sharing that story.
I was about to say, there's no kid growing up that wants to grow up and be a drug addict.
Right.
You can ask any kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? You want to hear doctors, lawyers, policemen, firemen, nurses, teachers. You want to hear all those things. But what ends up happening can easily be something completely different. Just because you want to go out and be sociable and have fun, try new things, we think we're invincible because we're young. We never actually experienced tragedy. So you don't believe all the hype about what really happens is a dependency grows during that period you're having fun and
Yeah.
you don't even know it until you try to stop. That's how I found out. I tried this when I got to be about 25 and I had a kid on the way. I wanted to stop and I discovered that I couldn't. And then I started a journey to find out why. And I found out why. And I got the help that I needed. And as a result, I've been given a great purpose. And that purpose is to educate people on the dangers before they get started.
Hmm.
I want to let you know what you're getting ready to get into, and it's going to creep up on you gradually. You won't even know it. And before you know it, you'll be living in hell on earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's very difficult to get out of that. It took
It's
me 13 years to get one clean year, but now I'm coming up on 30 years.
Congratulations, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You know, one of the questions that my son asked me a long time ago is like, Daddy, why do people smoke cigarettes? Like, don't they know it's bad for them? And I told him the truth. I was like, yeah, I would say anybody that smokes cigarettes knows it's bad for them. But and that's when we had to talk about addiction. I told him, I was like, it changes you. It rewires and reprograms your brain so that you can't live without it. And it programs you to want more of that, the feeling, the sensation. And the same goes with alcohol. You know what I learned about alcohol? I learned that alcohol, it doesn't make you not able to tell right from wrong. Like it doesn't inhibit your right and wrong sensors. Turns out what alcohol does is you can still tell what's right and wrong, but it disables the part of your brain that cares. And it's like, I know this is wrong, but you know what? To hell with it. It enables the fuck it. And you're just like, and alcohol brings out a person that it knows what it's doing is wrong, but does it anyways. And I'm like, wow, these things are powerful. Whether it's alcohol, crack, cigarettes, the addictive properties like really rewire and reprogram people. And I told him, I was like, addiction is a serious thing. And now there's things like screen addiction, cell phone addiction, stress. People can be addicted to the past and like relive bad memories. And you know what I learned about stress? I learned that stress releases a thing in your brain called cortisol. And cortisol is an ancient thing that when we're in fight or flight mode, it actually helps our blood to coagulate and get thicker. So in case we're scarred or cut or hurt, we don't bleed out to death. But it speeds up our aging process. So cortisol actually ages people. And when we stress, when we're addicted to stress and we're always anxious and anxiety, we actually age at an accelerated rate and we're dying faster. Like so these our brain is so powerful, and these things that can take effect on us and like change our brain chemistry and our programming have serious consequences. And you're absolutely right. No one aspires to be anything other than successful or something that they'd be proud to share. no one goes into a marriage hoping they get divorced. No one grows up thinking, I'm gonna try homelessness and addiction. Like we don't do that, and it happens sometimes like through no fault of a person's own. And the fact that we can survive those kinds of things, I think is a real testament to the human spirit and the kinds of things that we can do if we put our mind to it and have the right support group, you know?
Surely you're right. And some of the things that I found out, alcohol is a drug, and not just that, but cigarette smoking, nicotine is 10 times more addictive than cocaine.
Mm,
The Surgeon General said that on national television. So that told me that if the roles were reversed, if cocaine cost $5 a pack and nicotine cigarettes were on the street, well, people would be robbing and killing each other over cigarettes, like they
yeah.
rob and kill each other over cocaine. And so all of that stuff is no good. And what I used to struggle with is why the government allows cigarettes to be sold in the first place.
Thank
Because
you.
in my mind, I'm thinking the government is of the people, by the people, for the benefit of the people. And if you're for the benefit of the people, then you're looking out for their best interest, which is
Yes.
staying alive. And I looked at the government as big brother. You're going to do stuff for my good that I don't know I need, and but it's not exactly like that.
Yeah. It is
So
crazy that stuff like that is legal. Like we know how bad it is for you, and it's legal anyways. Like it's just one more reason to not trust the government, eh? Gosh. And,
they only
that's
it's
a
just
whole other conversation too.
yeah, I know. So
Yeah, yeah. Oh, speaking of Washington, I wanted to get your take on something. Is it the Washington Commanders or is it the Washington Redskins? Which one is it for you?
well, in my heart, they're the Redskins.
Okay.
Publicly, they're the Commanders. I got respect for the people who look at it as an insult.
Hmm.
I love the team from the time I was 13 years old. So I've been with them since like 1970, right? They were the Redskins
Hmm.
all this time. And I never thought of it as a racial slur. I
Right.
always they say the Redskin is they're talking about a warrior spirit, right? That's the way I look at it. But if there's someone who's hurt, then I'm gonna stop using the term. But in my heart, I think of them as the same team.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I feel the same. My sister is a diehard Redskins fan, and she still has all the old gear, like the hats, the
Throwing
shirts,
away
things
my
like
gear.
that. Right,
Oh,
right.
oh no. As a matter of fact,
Oh, I see it on the share.
and this was a gift. Somebody made this for me. That's how deep it is.
Wow.
That's my mob.
Nice. Oh, nice. Yeah, I learned something recently that it turns out the face on the logo of the Redskins is actually a historical figure. I don't remember the name of the person, but that person's family still to this day is fine with the use of the image and the use of the name Redskins. Turns out that the person's family themselves is not offended by it in any way, shape, or form. Like some people decided to become offended on their behalf. So I don't. It again. I could be wrong on this. People can look it up for themselves. But it turns out, from what I heard, the change didn't come as a result of that culture being offended by it. It turns out it was just like more of a political move in the same way that I don't know how these changes. And there's other teams like there's the Atlanta Braves, there's the Kansas City Chiefs. It's like why are we changing one and not changing the other? I remember when the Washington Bullets became the Washington Wizards. And I get it. You don't want your team to be associated with bullets and gunfire, especially DC. DC has a history of violence. But then you change it to the Wizards, and people like, well, that's what they call Klansmen. And I'm just like, all of this stuff. Like, I don't think people cheered for the Redskins to be racist. People cheered for their home team. Like let people have their sports and leave politics out of it.
Yeah, leave the politics out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, since this is entertainment, there should be some freedoms that are allowed,
Yes.
for the sake of entertainment. They say it's entertainment, then don't take it so serious.
Yes.
But I love the game. I love winning.
Yeah.
I take that serious. But man, listen, we can leave all that, the racism and all that stuff, politics, leave all that out.
Yeah. There's this thing about sports, like the comparison to ancient Rome, right? Bread and circuses, right? Keep the
Mm.
people entertained with games and things, and they'll be too distracted to notice how bad they're being screwed over, right? Yeah, there is that. I get it. There's some nastiness to professional sports, and the money gets involved, and FIFA and the World Cup, and no professional sport where there's money flowing through it is innocent. But
Mhm.
I think sports at their heart say something really true about us. May the best man win,
Yep.
right? And I think competency and qualification has been, look, I'm all for diversity. I'm all for naturally occurring diversity. I love seeing representation. I grew up being teased for being the Spanish kid. But I grew up in this country, and when I would bring over my white friends or my black friends or my Asian friends, they weren't always well received. They were looked at as outsiders, and I didn't like when white people were treated different. I didn't like when Asians were treated different. I didn't appreciate when blacks were treated different. I was like, I didn't like that because I know how it made me feel to be treated different as the Spanish kid, as the boy who, doesn't look this way or dress this way. So I've never been a fan of that. And sports, I think, is a beautiful thing because regardless of who you are, how you look, where you come from, what your political background, what your financial upbringing was, if you're good, you will rise, you will be rewarded for your hard work. And I think that's the beautiful thing about sports.
There's another part of it that, when you learn how to work with other people,
Yes.
the teamwork aspect, you become a more rounded person.
Yep.
you know and so, that's a good. I love basketball. That was my first love.
Nice.
Basketball, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't get no girls yet. And somebody told me one day that I was a scrub, and that lit a fire in me to go out and learn how to play this game. And then when I did learn how to play this game, I played out of revenge. I was there to punish.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's I love playing ball, man. I just wish I could have stayed young and continue to play.
I hear you, but there are all the things that go as we get older, like our agility, our speed, our youth, all those things. But I always say it's better than the alternative. Like
Yeah,
I mentioned before, I lost my best friend at 25. I think he would give anything to be here with knee pain and back pain and
yeah.
receding hairline and all these things. But
Arthritis.
right, right, calcium deposits in the bones. But to be here, still
Yes.
watching his kids grow up, like it's better than the alternative. So I'll take a receding hairline. I'll take knee pains. I don't mind not being able to run or jump like I used to. I'm here. I'm alive.
Yeah.
I can still do the things that I can do.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
and I'm
prepare for old age.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I think more people should embrace that because even myself when I was young, it's like, wow, like I don't want to get old, but I never thought about the mortality of it because when you're young, you feel like you're just gonna be around forever. Like just growing old is a given. Then you learn that it's not. You know?
You got to do some really good stuff to get old, buddy.
Yeah,
I actually have an ode to old.
yeah,
I had to write that down, because it's real deal.
yeah,
I like to tell the truth of the matter.
yeah. You mentioned team sports. That's another beautiful thing about sports is the fact that yeah, we talked earlier about how in the poetry and the music and the hip hop scene, there's ego and there's favoritism and things like that. And like there's also camaraderie and like the culture of the variety show, the uplift and the raise in the bottom. I love that name, raise in the bottom. That's perfect. I think team sports, like you watch you watch these players on a team, and there's often like the superstar or the star of the team. And when the star of the team does something well, the other teammates don't generally get jealous. They raise that man up because I think sports help us recognize greatness, and rather than be jealous of somebody who's doing well, we we're inspired to try to be like that, and we're just mesmerized by somebody doing and I was really grateful to grow up in the golden era of the NBA. Like I said, the Birds, the Magics, the Jordans, all that,
Yeah.
because like it was, and the Dream Team. Oh, the Dream Team.
Woo!
Oof.
I'm glad I saw
Yes,
that.
yes. I was, you know, it's such a beautiful thing. Like, and yeah, there is the whole conversation to be had about competition versus cooperation. Like a man that I respect very much, Jacques Fresco. He was one of my life teachers. Um, he talked about the detriments of competition and the benefits of cooperation. And I asked him when I was down studying with him, I was like, but what about the gracious losers? You know, the people who like can lose and learn from it and still shake the other team's hand. And
Hmm.
I don't think he really saw it that way. He really saw competition as hurtful to people. And I get it. You know, like I said, the people who I respect and admire the most in this world, I don't agree with everything they say, but that doesn't change the fact that I admire them, have respect for them, and appreciate what I learn from them. I think sports really do bring out the best in us sometimes. You know, not the dollars, not the ticket sales and that side of it, the sport itself. Like my father, like one of those things that my father told me, he grew up on soccer. One of the things that they had to do growing up, and this is a crazy thing, they would roll up a towel into a ball, douse it in gasoline, light it on fire, and play soccer with that at night because there was no street lights.
Woo!
That is
That's
that's dedication, that's
woo!
creativity, that's passion, that's love for the sport, and that's staying out of trouble because they could have been doing other things, you know, and that's the kind of thing that sports at its best can bring out of us, you know.
Oh yeah, man. I played basketball at night. You
Yeah.
develop you develop radar.
Yeah, yeah. I played ball in the rain. It's a beautiful thing. I felt
Oh,
alive.
I
Yeah,
played in the snow, man. It didn't
right.
matter. Had to be
Exactly.
I,
It'll be like 30 some degrees out there. You go up and you block a shot, and the sting
yeah,
on your hand from slapping
yeah.
a ball in your hand. But you keep going, you know, like
The tips hurt.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It really tests us, like the resilience, you know, like the like learning through sports or through whatever. Through sports though, it helps like learning how to push yourself beyond your comfort zone and become even better than you ever could have imagined. Like, that's a beautiful thing. So that's why I bring up the Redskins thing. Like it's something to be a little lighthearted about, the whole name change and all that. But like really, I really find value in sports. I really do, like the sport themselves. You know, and like basketball, like I said, kept me out of trouble. My daughter's into volleyball. Like I coach martial arts. I think sports, especially for young men who we need like some kind of physical, energetic outlet, sports provides something for us that needs to come out. And if it doesn't come out through sports, my man, it's going to come out some other way, and it's not going to
Always
be
coming
good.
out
Yep.
because what happens with men is we develop aggressions, and we need some place for it to go.
Yes.
And I found out that if we don't express all our emotions in a timely fashion, they build up. And so you have to have something to do with all those feelings.
Yes.
Oh, I used to put it in the game.
Right.
I'd go in there and get to rocking and rolling. And buddy, let me tell you, it's a great release.
Yes.
You know, when you can get out there and it helps you grow personally. You know, I know personally I was more of an introverted person, but if you get me on the basketball court,
Mm.
I change into somebody else.
Right.
You know, I'm really not out here making a lot of friends and whatnot. But you get me on the basketball court, oh, we're gonna end up being real good friends,
Yes.
right? To the point, I can remember once I walked up in this gym and I was watching these guys play and I tried to get with them, but they wouldn't let me play. But I kept going back to the court. And then one day I was in there, I was just watching. I wanted to play. One of them got hurt, and they looked to the side and say, "Anybody want to?" And yeah, let me in. Like, put me in, coach. I got in the game. Well, after that day, I ain't never have to ask to play again.
Nice.
When I walked in the gym, they said, "Give me him."
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. Because when you get me, unstoppable.
Nice. Yeah.
That's how it felt.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I talk about my buddy who I lost at 25. Like, I remember a time in middle school, and it was like intramural basketball, and my buddy was tough. He knew the streets. He kept me out of trouble. I was like that timid kid. I was very shy. I wasn't that outgoing. But through basketball, I was like my confidence grew through basketball. And one time we were playing intramural basketball with a bunch of people that I don't know that he's friends with. And I'm like, you think they'll let me in? And he's like, you're gonna have to find out yourself. Just show up. So I'm in there trying to make a name for myself, and they don't want to have nothing to do with me, right? And then like eventually, like you got to make teams, and I get picked for this team. Nobody really wants me there, and then they saw how I could play. They saw how I shoot, and without it's a funny thing. Like we didn't have conversation, we didn't have common interests, we didn't like the same things. But the fact that they saw me be able to play ball,
Instant.
they gain respect for me, and all of
Yeah,
a sudden it's like I made these new
you're a
friends.
baller.
Yes, exactly. It's like, oh, you a baller, man. Like, all right.
Always respect ballers.
Yes, and that's what it was. And they didn't respect me because I demanded it, because I really wanted it, or because who my family was or my last name. They respected me because of merit, because of what I could show and prove. That's the beauty of sports right there. And I won them over. I won their respect. These thugs, these hard dudes that like didn't want to have nothing to do with me. And it's like, all right, man, you can come play with us.
Yeah. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Acceptance.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Through
It's one
hard work. Through
through
hard
hard.
work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when
That's
I know personally, man, I used to practice all the time. I'm one of those dreamers. I dream a move, then I go out on the court and practice the move, then I implement it in a game.
nice.
Loved it. That's what I love to do.
Yeah.
So, people saw my work ethic, right? They can tell you have that kind of a work ethic because you produce. You produce the rebounds, the good pass, the good shot. You produce. And that's what they need, especially if you're the type of person that's not selfish,
Yeah. Right.
right? You're a team player, right? It ain't about me, it's about us winning.
Yeah.
And I'm playing both ends of the court, the defense and the offense. So, yeah, man, that's where the team sport will give you.
Absolutely. My
Yeah,
my my big brother taught me to play ball like really well. I think I owe my balling to him. Like I'm forever grateful for having a big brother for so many reasons, basketball included. Like, and I remember playing one on one with him for hours at a time, and I would lose over and over and over again. And it didn't bother me because I'm like, he's my big brother. I'm supposed to lose to him. But then there would be those moments. I'd get one steal. I'd block one shot. I'd win one out of 40 games. I was on cloud nine. I felt like I had just won the world championship. Right. And it sounds crazy because, like, what do you mean? You lost 39, you won one. It's like that one felt like heaven on earth to me. And it's just like that's the kind of thing. Like, and like you mentioned, like we talked about through hard work, like you can't fake skill. You can't fake anything real. Like when you can ball, you can ball.
yes, you
You know
can.
what I mean? Anybody can talk a good game, but you got to be able to show it on the court. And when you show it, it shows an authenticity that words can't manifest. It's like it can only be manifested through action. And I think that's another positive side of sports. Like you can't fake skill. You can't fake anything real.
No, you can't.
Yeah. One of the things that I wanted to really ask you about is your poetry. You mentioned a little bit that you had a little while ago that you had first performed, like I guess unexpectedly, and it didn't go so well for you.
Right.
Um, was that performance the beginning of your performing your performance stage, or did you kind of like step away from it for a while and then come back to it another way? Like,
Well, yeah, absolutely, because I didn't feel like that fit me. I was a young teenager, so I wasn't interested in doing poetry. I was interested in getting girls, though.
Right.
I wasn't all that good at that either. So that's how basketball became my first love.
Nice. Yeah.
But in playing basketball, it instilled a confidence in me.
Yeah.
And so I really never got back into doing anything poetic or artistic like that. There's an art to basketball to me.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
the way I played, it was like it was creative the whole time.
Yes.
At the same time, I was performing. I was in front of a lot of people sometimes.
Yep.
So I was performing. It was a whole different levels to just playing backyard ball and getting in front of a crowd with referees and all that kind of stuff. So it turns into a performance.
Yes.
But what happened for me as far as the poetry is concerned, when I actually started writing, I had gone to treatment. And part of the curriculum in treatment was you had to write about yourself. And I was doing pretty good at that. So by the time I got home, I was lost for a while. And so what I did was I went back to writing. The idea occurred to me that maybe I should write my autobiography.
All right.
And in the process of writing my autobiography, some things came out that I did not intend. And those things were poems. They were hip hop. There were four of them. One's called Illusion Confusion. One's called Judgment Day. One's called Holocaust. And one's called Artificial People. I learned three of them. And so with the first one, I learned, and believe it or not, I was writing on regular notebook paper. And Illusion, Confusion, Judgment Day, and Holocaust were all 6 pages long.
Oh,
Just rhymes. So I learned to spit those. And what I did was I went outside where I was living at Potomac Gardens, and I walked up to some of the drug dealers that I used to buy from. And I asked them, I said, hey, y'all, I wrote these pieces. Tell me how you think they sound. So I ran them down, and those dudes paid me after that. They
wow.
paid me. And I was like absolutely blown. I saw value in that. Somebody valued what I did, what I wrote, come straight out of my mind. And so that began my poetry journey.
Nice.
And so I just continued to write. I was inspired by things I saw every day. What you call it, street reporting.
You were a street reporter. Yeah.
Street reporter. So I started writing about the things that I was going through. I was writing about the things I saw and everything. It's a line in my song called Brick Walls, the barriers, and this is during homelessness. I was literally sitting in a soup kitchen line. They had us in this little waiting area directly across from this homeless couple with their little boy. The little boy was standing on his father's legs with his little teeny arms wrapped around his neck, and he was kissing his dad. Dad was enduring it. The wife was sitting there looking lost and hurt. And I was sitting there looking at the little boy, and the thought that came to my mind is that he's homelessly in love because he hopelessly loves his father, but he don't even know he's homeless.
Mm.
So I wrote that line because of that couple.
Wow.
And that's the way it comes out.
Yeah.
I'm just inspired by regular life stuff.
That really is the best way, really, like the organic, because you can attempt to write a good piece. You can attempt to make art with that goal in mind. Like, I'm going to make some great art. But a lot of the times it just you see something and it has an impact on you, and you translate that experience or that image into a piece of art. like unbeknownst to you, like you didn't ask for that experience or that visual, and you just are able to translate it into something, and it didn't happen. Like you didn't ask for it. You're lucky enough to have been there, to caught it, and to turn it into something and immortalize it, you know? Um,
Like
so
inspiration.
yes, exactly. So I want to ask you, if you would, to share a poem or a piece with our audience. But before you do, I wanted to say real quick, you had mentioned about writing in therapy and in healing. One of the things that I learned actually from the professor who taught me to appreciate Bible stories and those ancient texts, his name is Jordan Peterson. One of his books called Beyond Order, his second big book that he wrote. One of the chapters is called "If Old Memories Still Bother You, Write Them Down Carefully and Completely." And that chapter, I mean, I enjoyed the whole book, but that chapter, like as a writer, as a performer, really brought a lot of things out that I always knew to be true, but didn't have the words for it. And it made me think, like, you know what? This is what I've been doing all my life as a writer. This is what I've been doing. Like, I've had things that have been inside that I didn't know how to express. And when I wrote them down carefully and completely, like it changed me. I grew because of it. I released something that needed to come out, whether it was hurt or joy or memory or hope or something. I would write it down carefully and completely, and it really is a transformational experience. And with like I was telling Tim, with the last piece that I did called Without You, I took an experience I had simping over a girl and getting heartbroken that I had never really processed or dealt with, and I wrote it down carefully and completely, and I turned it into a song. And man, like it's like writing is such a transformative process. Like and I feel like that's what we do as artists. We take things that need to come out, that are going to come out one way or another, either a negative way or a positive way, and we choose art. We choose to paint it out or sing it out or with an instrument play it out. Um, and I think that's a healthy, or on the basketball court, we release our stress and our anger and our emotion on the basketball court or on the soccer field. I think as artists, we really do release a weight off of our shoulders through our art, you know?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So would you be able to share a piece with us?
Sure.
Yes.
Sure, I could.
Okay.
I was thinking about when you first asked me, the first piece that came to mind was one called Resurrection.
Okay.
Then I thought about the one called Miracle in the Mirror. I think I would prefer to do Miracle in the Mirror.
All right.
Okay. Okay. So we go, and you can tell my religious influence from this. Um, I thank God for His mercy. His grace has blessed my soul. He has created miracles ever since the days of old. He parted the Red Sea and made a dead man rise, healed a leper's wounds, gave sight to blinded eyes. He saw me chasing pipe dreams, using things that took my health, and heard me cry out, "Help me," because I can't stop myself. He blessed me with some sleep, and peace came with the rain. He said, "Come, walk with your father. My son, it's time for change." And these are your sisters and brothers I'm working through. They have a special love. I've designed it just for you. See, I've seen you lying and stealing, even though I commanded you not. But I know the good in your heart, so I'm giving you another shot. I have a purpose for you. Your life has another phase, and you can be successful by choosing to change your ways. Now, I've let you go through all this so that you can understand. Now, you are my greatest soldier. Now, you're a righteous man. Share your love and hope with all that wish to hear it. You are my newest miracle and purveyor of my spirit. But at times you'll be confused or caught up in a mess. Just come, meditate with me. I'll remind you that you are blessed. Do unto others always as you would have them do unto you. Let this be your guiding principle, and my love will always shine through. So, for all of those who don't know, let me make it a little clearer. God is still working. Check the miracle in your mirror. Thank you.
Beautiful. My goodness. Um, wow, like it isn't just the words, it's your delivery, brother. Like that's I can sense like the joy in in your gift, like just being able to share that. That was excellent. Thank you. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that.
Thank you for
Um,
having me.
you talked about your religious background and inspirations. This I don't know how well you can see it on camera. This tattoo that I have is
Uh-huh.
actually a painting. I forget the artist's name. It's a painting called Forgiven. It's a Christ in the background holding up the very man with the hammer and nail in one hand and in the other.
Woo!
Um, and what that and and like I said, I grew up in the Catholic Church, and the stories still resonate with me. Like one of my favorites is Jonah in the belly of the big fish, or however it's called. But that tattoo signifies for me forgiveness, and it's one of those things that I knew a long time ago that I'm a very flawed person. I've made mistakes. I continue to make mistakes. Not only am I going to need to ask a lot of forgiveness of other people, but I'm also going to need to learn how to forgive other people because it's very easy. And I was taught like misconstrued masculinity. I was taught like to, that's an enemy, not to be trusted, not to be forgiven. I didn't want to be like that, and I misstep. I make mistakes still to this day, and I've hurt people, but forgiveness for me, and in the way that, and like a Christ-like forgiveness to me, always seemed impressive. Like the way that people can take a hurt and pain and not let it turn them into something that is the opposite, like a Count Crackula. Like one of my heroes, like fictional heroes, is Batman, and Batman is basically the Joker but gone a different way. Like tragedy hits you and you either choose A, to become pain personified and inflict that on the world because you got hurt and they need to hurt too, or you choose to do everything you can to not only protect others from ever happening to them, but also like make yourself into a monster, but into a monster under control. And it takes a lot of forgiveness to go through things or to to move forward. So that right there, that poem really reminded me of that. And the forgiveness part of it is tricky because one of the people we forget to forgive is ourselves. We torture ourselves, we punish ourselves, we show up for other people, but we don't show up for ourselves. And I think we neglect to forgive ourselves sometimes for our own missteps. You know what I mean?
Of course.
And speaking of forgiveness, I wanted to ask you, like in this day and age of cancel culture,
Hmm.
in this day and age of like, oh, you believe this, you're canceled, or you voted this way, you're canceled, or you listen to this, or you do this, you're canceled, or we're not friends no more. In this day and age of friendships, relationships, and even marriages ending over different beliefs and different perspectives, and people not being able to forgive, what can you say, or what would you say to people who could use a little bit more of the mindset of you know, we don't see things eye to eye, but we can still come together and respect each other as opposed to agree with me or else? What would
Right.
you say to those people?
Well, forgiveness is not so much for the other person as it is for yourself.
Yes.
Because walking around with resentments and hurt and all that stuff is only causes you stress. It only causes you anxiety. It only causes you pain. And in most ways, the people that you're probably mad at don't even know you're mad at them.
Mm.
So if you want to use forgiveness as a tool, you can use it to heal yourself. One of the parts of the programs that I went through, and I learned this from psychologists, is that forgiveness is for yourself. It's not so much for the other person. So I have to forgive quickly, make amends if I can for any wrongs that I've done. That keeps me grounded, right? And that enables me to move forward in my life. So if I would tell you, hey, if you can, forgive somebody and forgive yourself when you make mistakes, because nobody's going to walk around on this planet and never make a mistake. Even the ones that search to find dirt on you got dirt in their closet too.
Yes.
So there's no such thing. You know, the funny thing about it is, I've always thought that people are perfect because we are so imperfect until we have to rely on God, which is a perfect way to be. So thank God for being God. I'm really grateful that I'm not God, because this world would not be here if it were left up to me. So man, forgive quickly, heal.
That is absolutely true. Like really, like we do more harm to ourselves by not forgiving than others. That is absolutely true. I couldn't have said it better, brother. There's only a couple more things I wanted to ask you, and like I said, I've really enjoyed this session. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me and get this out. Like I said, I love giving people a platform. What you've been doing with the variety show is the same thing. So in the spirit of that, like I want to know from you if, and I asked Tim the same question. I asked GGT the same question. If you could have just one superpower, and you can give me one that's serious or one that's a little bit lighthearted or one of each. If you could have just one superpower, what would it be? And I'd like to give you mine first. Like my serious one would be the ability to tell if somebody's being honest with you. Not to read their mind, but to be able to tell if somebody's being honest with you, because how beautiful would it be if we all could just be genuine with each other, right? You know, just filter out the phonies. And my
Mm.
not so serious one would be if I had a superpower, I would be able to, because it really bothers me when people walk their dogs and they don't collect the dog's poop. It would be I would be able to magically lift it up and send it right back to the owner. Like Magneto, you know, just like
Yeah, let it stick to you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
But
that's a good one.
but my man, if you had one superpower, if you could do one
Oh man.
superhuman thing,
Oh,
what would it be?
I thought about that, and I went through a whole lot of stuff, right? And I came to the conclusion that if I could, I would like to have the ability to make someone's wish come true.
Oh wow.
Say if now I'm going to use some a little bit of discretion with that, because some people might want something crazy.
Yes.
But say if a little boy said to me, "I wish I could get my mother a house," I'll make that wish come true. I wish I could. I wish I could. I wish I had. I wish those kind of things I would like to be able to do if I had the superpower. And then, of course, walking through walls, flying through the air with the greatest of ease,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. Of course, all
Yeah.
that I went through all that. The billions of dollars that
Yeah.
never runs out. I thought about all of that. But
Yeah. Yeah. The flight would be good. Flight would
yes,
be good. But then you'd also have you'd have to have the power to withstand extreme temperatures and things flying in your face. So then like
yeah,
whatever. But that's beautiful. Tim said he would impose wisdom on people. He would like give people the gift of wisdom. And I thought that was beautiful. Because
that's
you know Tim, he stays reading, he stays studying. That man is a mind.
yes.
He was a fascinating person to talk to, and also a great music producer.
No kidding.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's great. Tobal, I really want to thank you for this opportunity to not just converse with you, but to hear your story and learn more about you. I will definitely see you at the next variety show. I have missed you guys, and I'm gonna bring something special to the table.
Okay,
Where can people go to learn more about you and the variety show? Like any YouTube or social media links you want to share?
of course. If you look up Raisin the Bottom, you Google that and you'll see all the platforms. You'll see the YouTube channel, you'll see the website. And if you Google my name, Tobal DaGriot, there's another YouTube channel with a whole bunch of videos. I think I have something like 400 videos on the internet right now. You can search them out, and man, just get with the program. You know, I started up a band called Rock Bottom.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, so we've been in here. You can see the table behind me,
Yes.
equipment and all this stuff. We practice down here, and we putting some stuff together.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's
you can
beautiful.
Google me. You'll see me everywhere.
All right. And one thing I like to ask of people is if they would have, if they want to give, all right, let's say you're plugged into the world. The whole world can hear you. Every screen, every speaker, all eyes on you. What is your overall message to the world?
Overall, we're in this thing together. And one of the things that I thought about a lot recently is the fact that when I was growing up, I pledged allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, let that be the case then. Um, it's really tough being a black man in America. And so, if this nation is to survive, we have to work together, right? And we're going through a dark time right now.
Hmm.
So we're going to have to pull it in and learn how to work together so we can make America great, better,
Yeah,
basically. That's
absolutely.
that's what I wish.
Absolutely. That's really important too. Like, because in my work, like I said, I teach martial arts, and I have students whose parents voted this way. I have students whose parents voted this way. In my lifetime, I've opted out. I've chose not to vote. I've voted independent. I've voted Democratic. I've voted Republican. I've I get it, and I've had to, make nice with these parents, and not in a disingenuous way. Like, I've had to learn how to treat these people who see things very differently than these other people with the same amount of respect, because, like you said, like, we really are in this together. And we were mentioning Tim, like, the GGT, he made a beat that he blessed me with, that I ended up making a song called "The Choice Is Ours," and in that song I say, they say, make America great again. When was it ever great? We need to get up off the couch and make a better place. Like, when they say, my biggest problem with the whole make America great again wasn't Donald Trump, because I never saw him as a problem. I never saw him as the problem. I mean, yeah, he's a bunch of stuff that I'm not happy with, but the president of the United States is sort of like the coach of a sports team. There's a coach, but then there's a manager, and then there's the owner. So the coach doesn't do it all. The president doesn't do it all. And my problem with the whole "Make America Great Again" is, like, when are we talking about? Like, when is this again? Like, because to me, this country has always been great in a lot of ways, and it's always been flawed in a lot of ways. And they never really made it clear, like, what exactly is the time they're trying to go back to. And I'm like, is it not great because a Democrat was in office and now you're gonna make it great? Like, what? Like, I didn't like the non-specifics of it. So in that song, um, I was trying to uplift the message of one of my other mentors, Jacques Fresco, with his Venus project. He really talked a lot about, he was humanitarian, and he really talked about bridging the differences and the cultural divides, because we're all in this together. Like, it's one Earth. His
Yeah,
his his greatest wish was that we all see all the Earth's resources as all of people's common heritage. Um, and I really love what you said there about how we're all in this together, because there's really no other way to see it. Like, at the end of the day, you're gonna have friends, you're gonna have people in your community who you think very differently than, who you guys don't see eye to eye, but you you're a member of the community. You got to have some way of being able to work together, because we don't have another planet. We don't have another way about it.
you said it.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line right there.
Well, my brother, this has been great. I really appreciate this. I hope, to everybody watching and listening, I hope you guys have learned uh, a little bit from this. I hope you guys, choose to express yourselves. To every artist, every aspiring artist listening, The variety show, if you're in the DMV area, Maryland, Virginia, DC, look up Raisin da Bottom Productions and come out to the variety show. Showcase your art. You know, if you haven't, well, I'm not ready, I don't know if I can, just bring all that to the stage, bring the maybes, because the variety show is a place where your art, your imperfections, the best of what you got at the time is welcome. It's been a platform where I've been fortunate enough to be and share my stories and my experiences and my little gifts here and there. So come out to the variety show, my brother. I will see you there at the next variety show. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I look forward to sharing this video with the world.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored. I got to share some poetry, a few insights. I'm rocking.
I appreciate it. All right, thanks everyone for listening. Bye, everybody.
All right, thank you, sir.
So you enjoyed that Kendrick Lamar halftime show?
Absolutely, because it was so creative. And see, that's one of the best things I've ever seen, when you can have a beef, but you can express yourself in a creative way.
Yeah.
Man, that thing, I got beefs with people too, and I express it in a creative way. That young man is off the chain.
Yes.
The way he did that. And I'm like so impressed.
Yeah, he is definitely at the height of his fame. He's actually, Kendrick Lamar is actually my son's favorite MC right now. And I'm like, that's great. Yeah. I loved that performance. And I caught all the hate, all the shade that was thrown at it. Man, you couldn't understand him. It was too ghetto, it was too this, too that. You know the way I saw it, this man, he didn't try to be something he wasn't. He had the world's stage. There's not another stage in the world like the Super Bowl halftime show. If you get that stage, you will be remembered forever. And he decided to do with that his own thing. He brought the type of verses he wanted to say, the type of dance he wanted. He was so honest and genuine with it, and I mean the number of dancers and people he brought to light. I mean, think of all those people that he wasn't just a one-man show. He brought a lot of people. He raised them up too. Yes. And he didn't try to be something he wasn't. I'm like, you know what? That is the most authentic thing that a person could have done. And he also like reworded. He knew he was going to be on cable TV. He knew he was performing for like an audience where like maybe kids are watching. So he changed some of the words up. And I'm like, you know what? I gave that performance a 10 out of 10. My son loves it. My daughter loves it. I was like, way to go, man. Way to go.
Yeah, way to do it.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was absolutely awesome.